Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a first look at the brand new Community Day Meowscarada in the Open Great League. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Smudgy B, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now for the Com Day, Meowscarada does get two new charge moves, Frenzy Plant, which is Legacy, and Flower Trick, which is not. Since they're both grass moves in these battles, Smudgy is opting for Frenzy Plant and using Night Slash as the second move, that way so he can have a little bit of coverage. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at the new Legacy Meowscarada in the Open Great League. Hopping into the first match, picking up a pretty decent lead, Shadow Drapion versus Morpeko. Opponent with a beautiful prediction, able to switch out and catch the Aqua Tail onto Azumarill. But Azumarill will quickly be met with Meowscarada. Meowscarada is incredibly frail, it cannot take a hit whatsoever, but in exchange, this thing hits like a truck, and Frenzy Plant KOs Azumarill before it's even able to fire off a single move. In comes this Jumpluff. Jumpluff, I believe, is actually running Bullet Seed on the Jumpluff. Typically, they should be running Fairy Wind, but we do see a Bullet Seed Jumpluff of all things, and Acrobatics will deliver a knockout. At this point, you kind of just have to sacrifice the Malamar, as the Malamar doesn't really have any play into this team. The good news is the opponent is very weak to the Drapion, so Drapion should be able to sweep, but the best use of Malamar is basically what Smudgy's doing here, using it to tank an Aura Wheel, grabbing a shield with the superpower, and then just double shielding Drapion. Even a Dark Aura Wheel will do a ton of damage here, so we will see Smudgy commit the shield. Smudgy going for this Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail should just about knock out here. Morpeko is very glassy. Opponent committing all available resources to the Morpeko. Smudgy with a tough decision to make. He's going to shield. It is going to be a Psychic Fangs bait from the opponent. The opponent is going to switch and make a catch onto the Jumpluff. Jumpluff catching that Aqua Tail. That Aqua Tail, of course, not going to do a ton of damage, but Smudgy gets the catch back. He gets the catch onto the Malamar. It's going to be the Energy Ball, and the opponent will go for an undercharge. Back in comes the Drapion. Drapion farming up, going for the Crunch. Crunch will be able to pick up the KO. The question is, now it's going to be a race. Does Morpeko get to an Aura Wheel? And the answer is no. So the opponent with a devastating catch, Smudgy catches right back. And that game, a crazy one, is able to end in a win. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match, Shadow Drapion versus Azumarill. Azumarill, of course, is a complete wall to the current charge attacks of Drapion. Drapion will fire off the Crunch. Opponent does not get debuffed. Looks like the opponent may lag here a little bit, as Drapion will get a couple extra Poison Stings and fire off the Crunch. Crunch is going to land. It's going to be a CMP tie, and we do see the defense drop there. Azumarill goes for the Ice Beam. That deals a ton of damage to the Drapion, and Drapion will be able to deliver a knockout or grab an early shield with the Crunch. So the opponent will get KO'd there. In comes Diggersby. We see a pivot into Malamar, and this is going to bait out Serperior, and this is what Smudgy needed to do, because now Meowscarada gets to absolutely shred that poor Diggersby in the back. We're going to see Serperior going for a hard-hitting Frenzy Plant. No, they go for an Aerial Ace bait. Oh my goodness, the Frenzy wouldn't have KO'd either, but they go for the Aerial Ace. That gets called, and now they can't even farm down the Malamar. Malamar, more than happy just to let this go. Serperior will finally go for the Frenzy Plant. In comes Drapion. Opponent switches into Diggersby, and there is Meowscarada right on cue. Meowscarada more than happy to shield up Fire Punches. This thing cannot take a hit whatsoever. Meowscarada already getting met with a second Fire Punch. And the question is, can Diggersby actually outpace here? And the answer is no. Meowscarada is able to make the double Frenzy Plants against the Diggersby. Diggersby will commit the shield, trying to get that final move, but it's not to be. Frenzy Plant picks up the KO. Opponent still does have that Serperior. He can make it to the Night Slash, but he goes for an incredibly disrespectful catch. Why would you just win the CMP tie when you could destroy their hopes and dreams with a soul-destroying catch? Don't do it to him, Smudgy. Oh my goodness. And that is a good game. We move to the next match, Shadow Drapion versus Shadow Typhlosion. The fast move pressure from the Typhlosion is absolutely absurd, but Drapion's pacing is absolutely unrelenting. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. Opponent tries to go for good timing, but now they're forced to give up 2 shields. The Shadow Drapion so threatening. They're just going to undertap a Thunder Punch. Smudgy more than happy just to sacrifice the Drapion as its job is done. It generated an incredible advantage for his backline. In comes Malamar. Malamar is going to respect a potential Blast Burn. Opponent is going to go for a Thunder Punch. There's a switch out. They're going to safe switch into Serperior with the assumption that with the Drapion gone, Serperior should be pretty good in the backline, and it's honestly a pretty good assumption from the opponent. Malamar makes a foul play followed by a superpower. Superpower does not KO. Serperior barely able to hang on, but this sets up Meowscarada to get an energy advantage. Meowscarada still has the shield to hide behind. Opponent, of course, does have the Typhlosion. In comes Typhlosion. Typhlosion gets farmed down with Leafage, and whatever they had in the back was clearly weak to Meowscarada, as the opponent will concede the match. Incredible lead in the next match, Shadow Drapion versus Shadow Drifblim. And the Drifblim is staying in. We're going to see a safe switch into a Marowak. And Marowak is just going to get absolutely torn to shreds by the grass types here. They go for a Bone Club bait. That still actually does a ton of damage. And Meowscarada plays to the CMP tie as it knows it has a much higher attack stat. Opponent going to send in Typhlosion, only going to do 1 Leafage in the Night Slash, not going to risk a second, as then the Incinerate probably would have KO'd. Back in comes the Drapion, but this Drapion has so much energy. This poor opponent is about to learn the meaning of pain, courtesy of this Drapion. Drapion already at another Aqua Tail. That's going to KO. In comes the Drifblim, and they're not even going to get to see the Malamar. They just top left the match. They are out of here, and Smudgy gets the 2 shield flex. We move to the next match, leading Shadow Drapion into Jumpluff. Now this is a pretty nice lead. Opponent safe switches into Dugong, and Dugong will be answered with Malamar. Malamar not going to be threatened whatsoever by an Icy Wind, so very happy to let that go, and now look to farm up quite a bit of energy, and look to connect with a Foul Play. Foul Play, of course, not going to do a ton of damage, but this will set up a Superpower. Superpower going to inflict quite a bit of damage. Looks like his game may have lagged there. I don't know if that was a lag or an undercharge, but either way, the Dugong not quite able to get KO'd, and he's just going to let this go, and then I guess probably farm with the Drapion. The opponent pivots back into the Jumpluff, so this actually ends up working out great, as the Drapion has an energy advantage here. Crunch will land. We do see a defense drop. Drapion more than happy to absorb damage from the non-Shadow Jumpluff. Aerial Ace, that just really is not threatening, but after the Jumpluff's defense has been debuffed, this Crunch is very threatening, so they are going to commit the shield. No secondary debuff, that would have been too much of a good thing, but now that the first Aerial Ace has landed, the second one will of course be shielded. Drapion firing off another Crunch. Is the opponent willing to double shield? Yes, they are, so they do commit a ton of resources here. Does Smudgy decide to let it go and farm with Meowscarada? The answer is yes. It's all up to Meowscarada, and in the back, it's Azumarill, and Azumarill, I don't think it's gonna have a very good day. Smudgy overfarming perfectly, playing to the CMP tie, but the Azumarill lives on 1 HP. Oh no, disaster. That's gonna force the final shield. Meowscarada does have energy. Meowscarada just needs to land the Night Slash on the Jumpluff, and he should still be in a winning position here. Night Slash picks up the KO. All that's left is 1 HP on a Dugong, and that's a good game, and I believe that's a 5-0 set for Smudgy as well. Picking up a terrible lead, Shadow Drapion into Guzzlord, and unfortunately for Smudgy, he is completely core broken here. Guzzlord does great into this entire team. Drapion will go for the Crunch. Crunch does do a decent amount of damage, and now choosing to let this through. The opponent goes for the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing, of course, will be resisted, but the biggest issue you're going to have is this backline has no fast move pressure into the Guzzlord. Guzzlord is going to shield 1. They do get debuffed, and now we will see a farm down. Guzzlord, what do you send in here? Do you bring in the Malamar or the Meowscarada? Gonna send in the Meowscarada and respect a potential Sludge Bomb. And they do go for it, so that's a pretty big shield. Meowscarada now going to go for the Night Slash. This is resisted, but it should be enough to pick up the KO. Opponent is going to let it go, and now they're going to bring in Dugong, And look at these ice shards. These ice shards are shredding Meowscarada, but Meowscarada will be able to grab the shield with a Frenzy Plant, or the opponent would seriously regret it. Now we see a quick switch into Malamar. The opponent is going to look to connect with an Icy Wind. Icy Wind is going to land. This Malamar now pretty low. In comes a Shadow Quagsire. So they are very, very weak to grass in the back. Debuffed Foul Play, not going to do a ton of damage. And now the final shield of the match will be used here. It is going to be on an Aqua Tail. Malamar farming up, going for the Foul Play right before Quagsire is able to make its next move. Foul Play is going to pick up the KO. In comes the Dugong, and there's the catch. These sets, man, oh my goodness, savage catch after savage catch. These opponents cannot catch a break. And now he's reset his debuff as well. So Superpower very comfortably knocking out the Dugong and securing the win. We move to the next game, Shadow Drapion versus Clodsire. This is a bit of a core breaker for the team, but as long as shields are up, Drapion can do pretty well here. I believe Clodsire only has to bait once to win the 2s, but you can potentially look to switch out after getting some chip damage, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to switch into the Malamar. Clodsire did go for the Sludge Bomb, and now out comes a Gastrodon. Gastrodon goes for a Body Slam. This is a very poor play by the opponent because a Body Slam does not KO. They could have here overfarmed quite significantly, tanked the move they were going to tank anyway, and left with a lot of residual energy, but now they don't leave with a lot of energy, and you can't really send in the Drapion, so it's going to be Meowscarada time. I want to see this leafage damage, leafage adding up quite a bit, but the Gastrodon hangs on by the narrowest of margins to make a Body Slam, and that damage is honestly pretty significant. In the back is Annihilate, and this is looking like a loss, unfortunately, with the Malamar out of the way. The Night Slash is going to be shielded. In comes the Drapion, but if you're the Annihilate, you can just start spamming out Rage Fists in this matchup, because the one thing you cannot shield is counter damage, and these counters are only getting stronger. Smudgy's able to grab the final shield here with the Aqua Tail, but if you're the opponent, that's fine, because you just counter down the remainder of the team. The Clodsire in the back never has to re-enter the field of play, and unfortunately this team takes its first loss. Shadow Drapion versus Shadow Feraligatr, a pretty okay lead. Typically Drapion will have to bait if it wants to try and outpace in this matchup. We are going to see a full scent crunch here. The opponent is going to commit the shield. Feraligatr, one off the back-to-back. Smudgy going to commit the shield. Will he go for the bait here? No, the opponent is actually going to switch out and make a catch onto a Ninetales. And that's going to be the Alolan Ninetales on Charm. And oh my goodness, this backline cannot see Charm whatsoever. Firing off this Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail is going to be shielded. Can the Drapion get to the Aqua Tail? And yes, Shadow Drapion barely hanging on, knocking out the Ninetales. And that is such a huge knockout. This Feraligatr has a ton of energy, gonna bring in Meowscarada. Unfortunately does get the one turn bring in lag, commits the shield. It is gonna be the Ice Beam from Feraligatr, and it is Clodsire in the back. Clodsire going to be hit with a Frenzy Plant, and then I imagine we will be seeing a quick switch out of this matchup into the Malamar. Malamar, the Psywave shredding through the remaining HP. Opponent will go for a Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb will not be enough to pick up the knockout. They can go for another Sludge Bomb, and it still will not KO here. Sludge Bomb is going to get Malamar pretty low. Malamar, can it get a farm down? Opting not to risk it. Instead, firing off the Foul Play. Foul Play will pick up the KO. Can Malamar make the Superpower? No, it gets farmed down. In comes Meowscarada. The opponent does not get the Ice Beam because a Hydro, it would have done a ton of damage, but it's resisted, so it would not have KO'd. Terrible lead. When was the last time you saw a Swampert in the Go Battle League? And now he's going to safe switch into the Malamar and met with Jumpluff. Honestly, this is not a bad spot to be in. Jumpluff is something you have to bait out if you have a Meowscarada in the back, and you're very happy to just try and play for an energy advantage on Drapion. The opponent does have Acrobatics, and that leaves a serious dent in the Malamar. Foul Play will not be enough to KO the Jumpluff, and this unfortunately means Drapion will get a bit of farm, but it's going to have to take an Acrobatics in the process, and even from a regular Jumpluff, that is not a fun move to tank. We will see the Nose Shield. There's the Acrobatics, huge damage. In comes Swampert, in comes the Meowscarada, and I guess they're ABA Water. They just concede instantly. Oh my goodness, that's why you cannot run ABA Water. Hopping into the final match, Shadow Drapion versus Diggersby. Just gonna look to chip it with an Aqua Tail before looking to pivot out. Aqua Tail is gonna land, and there's the switch to the Malamar. Malamar answered with Feraligatr. The Malamar does have a pretty sizable energy advantage here. Malamar will go for the foul play. Feraligatr is going to commit the shield. Feraligatr farming up. Feraligatr actually lets the Malamar get to a superpower. That's a pretty large misplay by the Feraligatr, as now they're forced to go down 2 shields. And Malamar is super happy to let this go. Malamar did its job. It forced a 2-0 shield advantage. The Feraligatr does exit with energy. Smudgy sends in the Meowscarada, and they blind through a Hydro Cannon. No! That still does 50% because Meowscarada cannot take a hit. But man, I think they would have preferred to at least try and bait an Ice Beam. They are able to make a last-second Hydro. In the back is going to be Toxapex. Toxapex will be met with a hard-hitting Frenzy Plant. And then it's all up to Drapion to try and win this game. In comes the Diggersby. Drapion no shields and calls the bait. The opponent trying to save some energy, and that cost them dearly. A Scorching Sands would have KO'd, but Smudgy, absolute maniac in the Go Battle League today, calls the bait like it's nothing. He's going to overfarm as well. He wants a bit of residual energy to be able to outpace that Toxapex. In comes the Toxapex. Toxapex going to be hit with a crunch, and this will do some very nice damage. This will be getting the Toxapex into the red. Can we see one final catch? And we do. In comes Meowscarada to absorb the energy of the brine. Opponent undercharges it, and now can Drapion outpace? The answer is yes. And my goodness, this was an absolute slaughter today, as Smudgy, I believe, went 9-1 in those battles. And now some final thoughts on Meowscarada. Obviously, getting access to Frenzy Plant is going to be an improvement for it. However, I do still think that its typing doesn't do it a lot of favors in the current Open Great League meta, and the fact that it's insanely frail. I think its potential is limited to a Cupmon at best. So it's definitely worth playing the Community Day. I believe it's 3 times Stardust, and I would definitely grab some Meowscaradas. I would evolve them because they could be useful in potential future cups. And as we saw here, you can win with it in the Great League. You're just gonna need some very skillful play and some very strong teammates. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.